And here we go. We're up to page 47, number 8 in the letter. If you haven't caught on, by the way, the little bits of Hebrew, each chapter is elaboration on a line or two of the letter that he wrote to his son, as where we're at. Okay. Kisita and Esli Becha Tamid, that the Me'ayim Bisa, that the fear of God will intensify in your heart, and you'll always become aware. Li'anata halech, you'll always be aware from where you come from, and where you're going to, right? Me'ayin basa, where you come from, and li'anata halech, where you're going to. And realize that in life that you are frail as a maggot, v'afhi b'maischa, and all the more so in your death. So when a person develops humility, when a person works on their humility and makes it a part of them, what he's saying is that basically that it will become a constant. You'll always be aware 24/7 of this idea that there's something bigger out there, and you'll realize the smallness of yourself, and that ultimately, when you think you're a big shot, we're all going to the same place. At least our bodies are all going to the same place, which is in the dirt and the ground, and that we're very fragile. That our life really hangs in the balance of with God. It's furthering that idea that we are not as big as we think we are. So this sentiment is based on the Mishnah on Avos, which refers to 3 deterrents to sin. Avkaya ben Mehalalel says, consider the 3 things and you will not fall into a group of sin. Know from where you come, know where you're going, and know whom you are destined to be judged and called to account. Right, so know from where you come is talking about you came from the dirt, and know where you're going means that you're going back to the dirt. Right, your life is a very small, short window. You came from the dirt, and you're going to return to the dirt, and recognize where you're going to be held accountable. And this ultimately will bring a person away from sin. The Igeres Haramban explains further, all the above thoughts counteract pride and promote humility. When a man ponders his earthly nature and lowly beginnings, he sees little reason to feel proud. Man's position is similar to that of a swineherd who has attained lordship. Only as long as he remembers his early days will it be impossible for him to become arrogant. Right, from rags to riches. If he holds on to recognizing where he comes from, I mean, that's probably every movie plot, where the poor guy becomes the big shot and he forgets where he comes from. He gets so arrogant. But ultimately, when you remember, I was having a conversation recently with somebody about this. You get so caught up in life and the little things that you forget the bigger picture. The fact that like you were brought here for a mission, and whatever it is that you're dealing with comes from a place of like you're so caught up in this, and you've lost sight of what's really important, the bigger picture, and that's what arrogance is. So when morality becomes tangible, the source of humility is alluded to once again in Pirkei Avos. Rav Levitas of Yavne said, "Be exceedingly humble in spirit, for the anticipated end of mortal man is the worm," as in your body, your flesh is going to be eaten from the worm. If a person focuses on their body, then that's the arrogance. If a person focuses on their neshama, then they realize the godliness in it. It's difficult for man to cast off the illusion that he'll live forever. Yet, to the extent that he succeeds, he will obtain humility. Some of the members of the fabulously wealthy Rothschild family were known for their piety. One of the Rothschilds would disappear from his bank office every day at noon and return after an hour's absence. For years, no one knew where he went until finally, the curious clerk followed Rothschild's carriage on its daily drive outside the city limits. When the carriage reached the Jewish cemetery, Rothschild emerged. To the astonishment of the clerk, the wealthy man had discarded his customary frock coat and slip top hat, and instead was wearing a tachrichem, the white shroud of the dead. Rothschild stepped down into an open grave and laid down flat and motionless for a long period, repeating over and over again the words of the Rabbi Levitas: "Be exceedingly humble in spirit, for the anticipated end of mortal man is the worm." Once I accompanied my father-in-law, the Telz Rosh Yeshiva, Harav Mordechai Gifter, in Yerushalayim. After he visited the gravesites of Har Hazeisim, he told me of mystical texts which write that preparing one's burial place in one's lifetime is considered meritorious, and helps one secure a longer life and healthy accounting. Indeed, when death starts to become tangible reality, one is more likely to improve the spiritual quality of his days and thus merit long life. I've seen this firsthand when I used to visit my great uncle in the nursing home. There's always a massive influx of like returnee Jews in their old age, like who start showing up for shul on Shabbat and start going to the holiday programs, because there's this understanding that I'm going to die soon, and then they start to pay attention to things that are important in life, which is so interesting because it means like deep down they always knew what was up, and they sort of just ignored it. But when you're facing the grave and the coming years, things sort of change in that sense. Um, so to me, this is self-evident, but I wonder if you guys like connect to that idea of recognizing the fragileness of life and ultimately that one day you're going to die, and the whole "it's not really about you" sort of shtick. Like, does that foster? Do you feel like that helps foster humility on some level?
Yeah, I don't know where I learned this or where I got this, but like I think it was from Jonathan that taught me this, but like when my grandmother passed away, like we kind of talked about like how like you don't even take a sock to the grave. Like it was like you don't even go to the grave wearing your own socks. And like the Devar Torah, like what he taught was like you have all these things in your life, but like you don't even wear socks to the grave, like you're like I don't know how he like put it into terms, but like I remember the sock part, and I was like, you don't even take, it's really what you're leaving behind, not what you're taking with you.
Right,
Like I have everything in my life is so important to me, like my friends, my clothes, my phone, blah blah blah. But like when you're in the grave, it's literally just you and like what you've left behind. Like you don't even take your socks, you
right.
know?
Yeah, I think definitely that help you get over yourself for sure. You're like, you know what? If I were to die tomorrow, would I be making such a fuss about my car keys or my like something, I don't know. Um, so yeah, I guess it's another trick of the trade in order to make humility a constant. A night in the graveyard. The Talmud teaches in Brachos, a person should seize every opportunity to do battle with his evil inclination, his Yetzer Hara. If he triumphs, all is well. Yet if he first fails, he should engage in various Torah study. If he subdues his desire for evil, all is well. If he does not, let him then recite the Shema, the credo of the Jewish faith. If he then succeeds, all is well. But if he does not, at the last result, let him picture the day of his death. The vision will undoubtedly destroy the evil's allure. So interesting. You ever do that? What do you want written on your tombstone? Um, Little activity. It's kind of cool. The Talmud in Brachos teaches us a certain chassid who on Rosh Hashanah Eve gave a precious coin to a beggar. The year before had been one of severe famine and poverty, and the chassid's wife felt her husband should have kept the coin for his own needs. They quarreled over the incident, and the chassid became angry. That night, he inexplicably left his home to spend the night of Rosh Hashanah sleeping in the local graveyard. Rabbi Sorel Salanter, who is the father of the Musar movement, explains that the chassid recognized his anger represented a shortcoming in his character. The genuinely humble person accepts his life's unpleasantries with sincerity. Thus, the chassid, wow, that's a lofty level to aspire to. Thus, the chassid felt unprepared to be examined by the Almighty on the morrow, the day of judgment, while still harboring such serious flaw in his nature. Hence, he slept in a cemetery to overwhelm his pride quickly. Nothing so wholly convinces a man of his own frailty as contemplating his inevitable mortality. Wow. So I feel like this whole chapter was really just a like a tip of perspective, nothing that we don't know already, but rather a perspective, like I guess a tool to look at the bigger picture and not get caught up. I mean, really, most of the stupidity that we get ourselves involved in, whether it's conflict or turmoil, whatever, those stressors come from being really in the moment. It could even be like stressing out over a test, like you lose sight of that bigger picture, that there's, life is precious and it's very short. And I'm not all that as I think I am. I'm not really the ish. The question is, how do we use that as a tool and translate that into homework in a sense? It's more of a perspective, than a.
You know how like sometimes people will say like when people like make decisions or whatever, they'll say like think about how this will affect you in a day, and then think about how it'll affect you in like a week or a month or like a year, whatever. Like we could kind of think about it like that. Like when we, like if we're like getting mad or like we're making decisions or something, we could think like to ourselves like what's the impact of this in 10 years from now? Like should I make a big deal about it
Like,
now or something, you know?
we can ask ourselves, like, is this gonna matter when we're dead?
Well, right, but here's
Sounds
the thing.
dark, but
For homework, there's got to be an action, right?
We
A
could all
thought.
find like our own memento moris and like come up with like different items like a clock, or like we could all sit down and watch a fruit rot and think about our little time we have here.
If that wasn't morbid, I want to watch the kiwi go moldy. What's something that we can do that, again, when dealing with either anger or humility, when you start to get worked up on something, that you can keep yourself in check, some sort of an action that will represent the fact that, let me look at bigger pictures. It's really worth it. One day, when I leave this world, do I want this to be the memory that highlights my life?
Well, I actually kind of do vibe with Maya's idea, not necessarily that, but like when we feel like we're not doing well with anger or humility, we can look at something that reminds us that like this world's not forever. Like whether that be like a picture of like a, I don't know, like a relative or
Or
someone.
even a clock, just looking at a clock and just seeing the seconds count down. Or like, you know, those websites that have like the, Serena, what is it? Like like the seconds you have left to live, and it like counts down, and it's like
Seconds? No, I only know the websites where it's like you are 6,000 days old. Like, ooh, you're old.
yeah. And then there's some that say like on average you have
So
only this many weeks left.
you want to try that when you get worked up this week, you have to look at a clock for at least 15 seconds and ask yourself, is this how I want to spend my time?
I like that.
It's intense. It's very intense. But you have to
Yeah.
actually do it. You have to actually do it. You can't just like, oh yeah.
I like it.
You just want to use the clock emoji, Tay.
I'm already thinking of which emoji to use.
I know. I see the gears turning there. Okay, I'm game. I'm game with it. So that if we get into some sort of an argument, a fight, or a situation where our arrogance comes out of us, we need to, after the fact, stop, look at the clock, and say, "Is that how I want to spend my time?" And then maybe we could tap into that apology homework from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay, Avi, now write that in emoji too.
Working on yourself is exhausting. It's really exhausting.
It is.
And it's so easy to let yourself off the hook. But whatever. It's good to do it with other people. All right.
I feel like it's exciting though, because it's like, if I'm gonna
when you're successful.
spend my time, then I might as well.
When you turn around and look back after the fact, it's a great feeling, but it's still exhausting. Like, to really like hold yourself accountable and be like, all right, you got to do this. So
yeah.
All right.
But like the stuff, like the humility, for some reason, it's like, I don't know, it's a little bit easy for me.
Really?
Am I not doing it right? Maybe I should be.
That's so humble of you.
Maybe I should be trying harder.
Well, recognize humility is not just about like always giving in. Being easygoing isn't necessarily humility. Humility is the recognition of where things come from, and that also means looking at yourself in a humble way. Meaning, are there expectations of me? Did God create me and has expectations of me? And am I standing in the way of those expectations? It can go a lot deeper. So humility is a heavy thing. Definitely. All right. Game on. Good luck, y'all. Good to see everyone.